Welcome back to the Get Off the Treadmill podcast for small business owners and entrepreneurs, where we show you how to build a successful business and to have a life too. We're going to dive into another topic that helps us make more money in less time and to get off the treadmill so we can experience a life of significance. And now, your host and the author of the #1 best-selling business book, Making Money is Killing Your Business, Chuck Blakeman.
Hi, and welcome back. Chuck Blakeman here. Today, we're going to talk about 3 life-changing steps for making big decisions and, frankly, small ones too. The most profound things are the simplest, in my opinion. If the only thing you take from listening to our podcast is this simple 3-step process, I'm comfortable saying it could change you and your relationship to your business. This is a transformative process that forever changed my relationship with how to make decisions and actually carry them through. For years, I thought a decision only had one step: make a decision. I was wrong. There are 3 steps to any decision, and until you've done all 3, you very likely haven't made an actual decision. You just thought you did. The 3 steps in making a decision that I've learned over the years are: 1, make a decision; 2, put a date on it; and 3, go public. Let's explore for a moment why all 3 of these things help us carry through on real change. Did you ever know anyone who was engaged to be married and stayed engaged for years? That's because they intended to get engaged, not get married. And you get what you intend, not what you hope for. When a couple actually decides or intends to get married, they'll put a date on it, and they'll go public, and they will be changed forever. So first, we make a decision. That seems like it stands alone, right? But my experience has been that making a decision is most often, for me, not an actual decision. Don't get me wrong, making a decision is a good thing. But more often than not, we don't really make one. We just claim we made one. And more importantly, we only make that claim to ourselves. So it feels good to make the claim. And I can feel like I've actually done something, but I haven't. Step 1, make a decision, is too often just a head game to pretend we're moving forward. It's another way of playing office, which we'll speak to at length in another podcast. I've learned that step 2 actually begins to firm up this declaration into a real decision. So the first step in making a decision is make a decision, and then we get a lot closer to actually carrying through with it when we put a date on it. Again, for me, I've learned that this is usually still not a decision, but it's a lot closer to being one. When we pick a date for finishing the task or arriving at the objective, we're showing to ourselves that we mean business. Declaring a date starts some exciting wheels in motion that could lead to success. But again, because we've only shared this with ourselves, even if the date comes and goes, we can always change it. So no big deal. But carrying out step 3 changes everything and makes it very likely we will actually make the change. So step 1, make a decision. Step 2, put a date on it. And now step 3, go public. It's when we take the 3rd step of going public that we show ourselves we actually mean business. When we set a date, invite others to celebrate it with us, or put it in our newsletter and commit to an event, we are now fully in the game. Going public is like burning bridges. There is no going back. It's a tough thing to do sometimes, but the focus and energy that comes from going public with your decision and your date can't be found by any other means. If I'm not willing to go public with a decision, I need to look inside at what is keeping me from wanting to do that and whether I really want what I whispered to myself that I want. If you want it, declare it from the rooftops. If you don't do that, then it might be time to reassess whether you really want what you say you want. An early 20th century study some people know as Pearson's Law, or others know as the Hawthorne effect, found that when we measure things people are doing, their productivity goes up just because they know somebody cares and is seeing them. It's a fundamental desire of human nature to be seen and then also validated. The research showed that taking this measuring just one step further has dramatic results. When we observe and measure and then report the results to whoever is doing the work, their productivity goes up exponentially. It shouldn't be surprising because it's really just the gamification of work. When I know I'm doing X, it makes me wonder how I might be able to do X plus 1. And in our case, when we say we are going to do something, put a date on it, and go public, we're gamifying our own decision and showing our resolve by inviting others to watch us succeed. Going public shows we really mean it, and that resolve changes everything. Jean Samuelson, a friend of mine who owns a corporate training company, told me how she got started, or how she actually didn't get started. She had all the plans, the syllabus, and the locations for starting her business. She was building a network too, but just couldn't figure out how to actually get clients. She was stumped. Then she went to a conference for HR professionals, which is her target market, and about 125 HR execs were there too. The moderator started the day by asking if anyone had any workshops, seminars, or events to announce, and if so, would they like to pass around a sign-up sheet? Jean didn't have anything planned at the time, but realizing this was her best shot to reach 125 people in her target market, she reached deep, took out a yellow pad, made an event title, put a date on it, and passed it around. One woman signed up. Jean was disappointed in 3 ways. The first emotion was embarrassment. Oh no, only one person signed up. A one-person event would be embarrassing. The second emotion was a bit of panic because she suddenly was committed to an event she hadn't even planned and wasn't ready to execute, and it was supposed to happen 4 weeks from now. And the third emotion was a sense of loss because she thought she would likely lose money on the event. But having made a decision, having put a date on it and gone public, wheels were in motion that were going to help Jean get to a place she had never been. The ad hoc event was only 4 weeks away, so she got moving, worked really hard not to be embarrassed by having only one person there. And in 10 days of working hard at invitations, she succeeded in attracting 18 more HR pros. She invested the rest of the time planning a very meaningful and impactful event, which ended up being a huge success. And a number of people signed up on the spot for her next one and gave her referrals that allowed her to hit the ground running. After a number of months of going nowhere in her business, she had made a big splash and was on her way. So what caused her to get off the dime and get moving? She had decided to do something, and more importantly, she put a date on it, and even more importantly, she went public. She had burned all the bridges behind her and couldn't weasel out of the date because others knew about it and were depending on her to follow through. If she had only made a decision and put a date on it, her business might never have gotten started. So this 3-step process is critical for making any big decisions. And really, like I said, any decision, big or small, especially ones we feel might have a difficult path to completion. Difficult paths include things like emotional or mental barriers, like I'm scared, confused, or ill-equipped. And then there's complication barriers like a big software transition or new product rollout. And then another difficult path is outside forces, like a tough economy or competitive pressures. And then another difficult path might be just that it's a long-term horizon decision. Things that will take a long time to actually bring to life and might get pushed aside by the daily tyranny of the urgent. So I'm doing this short podcast here to set up both our ability to make decisions that have difficult paths that we will actually follow through on, and to highlight the importance of the next podcast on picking a business maturity date, one of the bigger and most important decisions you will ever make in business. But you can't say everything at once, so we're doing this first. And before we get to the business maturity date in support of making a decision, let's talk about the second most important, second least asked question in business. If you're wondering, the most important and least asked question in business is why, which we will get to in a few podcasts. Stay tuned. There are 6 reporters' questions: who, what, when, where, how, and why. Of those 6, the second most important, second least asked question in business is when. When shouldn't be such an unusual question in business, but there's no secret as to why we avoid it. It holds us accountable, it makes things very measurable, and lets us know if we've failed. And by the way, in another later podcast, we'll talk about why failure is never the right mindset or response to something that didn't go as planned. But actually, when should be one of our best friends. It is one of the best ways to get utter clarity. When can tell us we're doing really well, and it gives us a goal to shoot for, and it keeps us on track and focused. As such, it can really transform us. But too often we just see when as the enemy. I've learned that too often I have not wanted to know how things are going. I call this being professionally confused, which I identify with this mindset. When I'm confused, I'm not responsible, so I'll just stay confused. Of course, nobody does that intentionally, but I know I have embraced that mindset at times, and it has never helped me. I've made excuses like, there are so many good ways I could get this done, I just don't know which one to pick. That was part of Jean's paralysis. Or there are so many bad things that might happen that I'm afraid to pick anything. That was on her mind as well. So it's a bit of the old adage, ignorance is bliss, but it's just delaying the inevitable. If we feel like we want to be professionally confused about something, one of the ways we can catch ourselves doing that is by making decisions without putting a date on them or not being willing to go public. Being professionally confused gives me a smokescreen for lack of commitment in order to avoid actually succeeding. So let's do our best to cut through all the head trash we've been carrying around about making soft, mushy decisions that don't lead to change. And let's adopt the 3 steps that actually help us make a decision. Make a decision, put a date on it, and go public. And remember, a decision is many times not a decision until we do those last 2 steps. Put a date on it and go public. Until then, too often we're just playing office. So what might be your next step? What one decision do you need to stop procrastinating on? On what date will you get it accomplished? And who are you going to tell about that decision? In the next podcast, we'll use this process to pick a business maturity date to make that decision. Let's figure out how to make more money in less time and get off the treadmill by picking a business maturity date, a date that will give us freedom in our business so we never have to have freedom from it. Keep going. I'll see you there.
That wraps up another episode of the Get Off the Treadmill podcast. If you found this podcast helpful, please subscribe and hit the like button to ensure you are receiving the latest tools you need to grow your business and to get off the treadmill. If you want more information on the 3 to 5 Club, the Crankset Group, or to book Chuck as a business advisor, speaker, or workshop leader, you can contact us at grow, GROW, @cranksetgroup.com. Until next time, have a great week.